Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the show. My name is Nolan, sports enthusiast, here with another episode. Today we're going to be skipping basketball and going through a little bit of football drama. I know on the internet a lot of people have been talking about the NFL draft, specifically Shedeur Sanders and how he slid down the draft and ended up getting picked in the 5th round. Just a little bit of background for those of you that don't know. Shedeur is the quarterback at Colorado. His dad, Deion Sanders, is an all-time football legend and is the coach at Colorado. Shedeur was expected to go, I'd say, in the 1st round of the draft and maybe even in the top 10, ended up sliding to the 5th round. And so we're going to play, the internet's favorite game, Is This Racist? And let's watch a few clips first, starting with the draft, the NFL draft expert from ESPN. That's Mel Kiper having a meltdown, going off about this a little bit. Let's see what he has to say, and then we'll react.
My point is, Race, the NFL has been clueless for 50 years when it comes to evaluating quarterback. Clueless. No idea what they're doing in terms of evaluating quarterback. That's proof. There's proof of that.
How many
times? They say we know exactly what we're talking about with quarterback. They don't.
You can see in the clip, there's Mel Kiper going a little nuts, going off on evaluators in the NFL and how they can't determine what makes a good quarterback. But I think the big question online, and why I made a bit of a clickbaity title for this one, is this racist? Was there some type of racial element to why Shedeur Sanders went from being a 1st-round pick to a 5th-round pick? And to me, I would say kind of. But let's look at a few more clips from other experts talking about
That's why I think of anybody on that list that you have of fifth round guys, none of them had the skill set that this young man had. This is not about can you play the position. This is about do we want you to play the position for us. That's what this.
Why wouldn't they, Lou?
Well, look, that's a whole nother discussion that we've had in many different ways for weeks and months now.
So in this clip, you see him kind of dancing around the question, saying this isn't a talent thing. He's more talented than people that were picked in front of him. So they won't really come out and say exactly what they mean by this isn't a talent thing. But I think for some reason he kept sliding. And I do get that there is some talent, different arm talent or whatever it might be, but there is something else going on that caused him to slide down the boards, and I think ESPN can't really say it. They don't really know exactly how to talk about it, and so it just feels uncomfortable on their set. So let's look at another mogul in the sports entertainment world, Colin Cowherd, and kind of analyze what he said over the years and see if it aligns with anything and if we can draw anything from that as well.
Lines after Caleb Williams reveals painted nails and a pink phone. This is another example of headline doesn't match reality. I do not believe 95% of fans care, 95% of media cares, and 0% of NFL general managers care. I think this is the media giving oxygen to lonely people on Reddit boards. Stop. Every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks, every week there's a new boycott in America. Oh boy, 12 people drive it. Take a deep breath. We're all going to be okay. How you dress, your nails, the color of your phone, who you date. I'm sorry, but Chicago loved Dennis Rodman. I think they're going to be okay with a pink phone from Caleb Williams. Some of this stuff is generational.
Okay, so that was Caleb Williams, who was the number 1 pick in last year's NFL draft by the Chicago Bears. And I think a lot of people would point out, well, the last 2 drafts, the NFL has taken a black quarterback. They can't be racist. There's no racial undertone going on here at all. But I think you should look at the way he defends Caleb Williams for painted nails, for a pink phone, for, whatever the outrage might be last year. But that was considered acceptable outrage. Those are things that, well, we maybe don't want our quarterback to do that, but that's in line with being a franchise quarterback. Versus, let's play a video of him reacting to Shedeur Sanders from this year. See if we notice any differences.
We both like Shedeur as a player, like not love. I don't think he's a bad guy. I want to clarify. I don't think he's a bad guy. But no one does. I don't think he's a bad guy. But I do, I said this on the show Friday. Paying for the quarterback draft room with legendary all over it. It's like, bro, come on. Just the New York Giant shoes. It's like, dude, just scale back a little until you're drafted. Then do whatever you want. And then you combine it with his dad, who did not, I've been saying this, quarterback dads become pageant mom. Then his dad in January and February during Super Bowl interviews is saying, there's just some teams we're not going to play for. It's like, Dad, you're not helping.
Right, so you can see in this clip, they're saying, Shedeur is not a bad guy. But also you see Colin Cowherd say, well, he had legendary in his draft room and he was cocky. And, he had New York Giant cleats. And it's like, if you compare that to what he says about Caleb Williams with the phone, with the pink phone, with the pink nails, it's completely different. Now, they're both black quarterbacks, and I get that Caleb Williams is projected more talented, I guess, bigger arm and, whatever than Shedeur. But I do think that part of it is involved with race or culture in some way, because all these guys online are saying Caleb Williams is amazing, this confidence, this arrogance, this brash, he's got everything you're looking for. But then with Shedeur, it's a turn off. It's not the same thing. And it's like, for any young athletes out there, I think especially, they're talking about this a lot, for a quarterback, is you do have to conform a little bit. You have to present yourself in a light that is viewed positively by GMs and scouts and people that Colin Cowherd talked to, because that is how you get more hype and that is how you make more money. Because Caleb Williams, well, he dates a white girl who's like a supermodel from Norway or something, and he paints his nails and he's got supreme confidence, and those were viewed as acceptable by GMs. But Shedeur Sanders, for lack of a better word, is considered more hood rich, chains and cars and Escalades, and that is now perceived as a negative. So I do get that there's so many factors going into all of these decisions, but I think that's important to talk about. And ESPN and Fox News, or Fox Sports, cannot bring up these topics, because I also think it relates to the NBA. In the same way you want your quarterback to have certain traits, the guy who's your best player on an NBA team has to have certain traits. And you're seeing this with the Memphis Grizzlies with Ja Morant, where it's like, we love the talent, but we don't really want to pay you, and we don't want you to be the head of our franchise unless you're going to act a certain way. So these leagues, these sports leagues, they do get you to try and conform to make more money, to get more influence, to get more minutes. You kind of have to adapt to a certain way. And it's not for every position, for sure. Quarterback is very different from defensive end, defensive tackle, cornerback, wide receiver. You can be a little more wild. And that's the same thing in the NBA. If you're the 7th man, the 10th man, they don't care much about your personality. But if you are the leader of the team, the head of the franchise, you better, drink wine and act professional. You better not be Luka drinking beer and out of shape. You know, it's like, even though the talent is there, I think these GMs, they get so caught up in the circles that they're in and hyping guys that they like, and that, oh, this is exactly what we want in a quarterback, or this is exactly what we want in a point guard. And I think it's interesting, and I don't think a lot of people are allowed to talk about these things. So let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Is this way off? You know, because it does feel like a little bit of racial undertones in why Shedeur slipped. And it seems like you're not really allowed to say that online. But I also do get that it might not be race, because if you look at golf, it's like Tiger Woods was a black guy and was the poster boy for golf. And John Daly was like white trash. Like, get out of here with your drinking and your partying, and this is not how we do it in golf. So I'm not saying that everyone in the NFL is racist or anything like that, despite the clickbaity title. But I think it's interesting to talk about, and certainly they do want you to conform. And I guess that's with any job. They want you to act a certain way and be responsible and professional. But I don't know. I think Shedeur Sanders is allowed to be himself, and clearly he was raised by his dad, and they've got this intense bravado, and the way they talk and the way they act and the way they carry themselves is, like, I think perfect for sports and good for the NFL. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. You know, please like and subscribe. Share this if you think anyone might be interested. Until next time, this is Sports 2L. We'll be back.